Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Social Value for SMEs and VCSEs, being hosted by AKG UK. My name is Joanne Van. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Social Impact Manager for AKG UK. And this morning, we will introduce a host of guests, and you'll hear from myself and hopefully pick up some information relevant around social value and how to make the most of things. So, next slide, please. Okay, so just on our agenda this morning, we're hoping to take you on a bit of a practical journey through social value. We'll start off by explaining what social value is, why it matters. I think when people hear the phrase social value, they often think it's something complicated, something that's only relevant to large organisations, but hopefully we're going to be able to show you that actually it's quite relevant for everybody. We're also going to be looking at we're also going to be a social value manager for Stepnell Construction, who's going to be talking cost social value and give some practical hints and tips for everybody. I'll be introducing my colleague Donna Linton, who's looking at social recruitment in practice. Donna is our National Employer Services Manager for AKG. And then following on from Donna, we're delighted to welcome Matt Haworth, co-founder from Impact Reporting and Measure Up. Matt's going to be introducing the Measure Up programme, the Measure Up system, and it's talking about how you can evidence your social value using Measure Up, which is a free system, and I'm reassured by Matt that it will always be free and will remain free forever. So a really useful system for organisations to know. Okay, so we'll move on with it. Just so everybody knows, we are recording the webinar, and there is the opportunity to use the Q&A box if you do have any questions. Pop them in and we'll get to them at the end. Okay, so what is social value? As I mentioned just now, people often think it's something complicated, something that's only relevant to large organisations or to public sector contracts. But in reality, social value is very simply the positive difference an organisation makes for people, communities, the economy and the environment through the way that it does business. Most of you will already be creating social value without even realising it. For example, if you buy from local people, buy from local suppliers, employ local people, give your employees time to volunteer, you're creating social value. If you support local charities, offer apprenticeships, mentor young people, provide work experience, you're helping people develop skills and opportunities. Or you might be improving the environment by reducing waste, reusing equipment, or finding a way to cut your carbon emissions. Digital exclusion, if you donate laptops or help provide digital skills. If you create accessible workplaces, recruit inclusively, help remove barriers and ensure more people can access employment. All of these are social value practices that improve the communities that you live and work in. And the nice thing is that none of these activities need to happen in isolation. So if you look and think, okay, well, maybe I do one of those, I'm not able to do them all. Some of the most successful social value is usually delivered between partnerships. So hopefully this webinar will help clarify that this morning and encourage you to think about your own organisations and some of your neighbouring organisations around what you're already doing. Next slide, please. So why does it really matter? Why should organisations invest their time in it? And the answer is really that social value creates benefits for everyone that's involved. For businesses, most people assume that social value is only relevant if you're bidding for public sector contracts. And why it certainly helps you win work, that's only one part of the picture. Businesses that build stronger relationships, enhance their reputation, and invest in their communities. Customers, employees increasingly want to work with organisations that demonstrate they care more than about just profit. I know I certainly do, and I feel really lucky that I work for a
Joe, your volume's cut out.
all sat in this heat wave the last few weeks, so we all know that the environment is really, really important. And large private sector organisations are starting to look to their suppliers to demonstrate the social value that they deliver too. So even if you never bid for a public sector contract, social value is still going to be there to strengthen your business and open new opportunities. And it's not just about meeting a procurement requirement, it's about being a good business. Apologies, my sound does keep cutting out, so I will send these slides out afterwards. I've tried my best to get onto a good Wi-Fi network this morning, so apologies if there's any sound problems there. Please do bear with me. So for VCSEs as well, social values equally important, but for slightly different reasons, because hats off to you, you are already creating incredible social impact every day. Whether you're supporting young people, tackling loneliness, improving health and well-being, helping people into employment, it's social value in action. But the opportunity is to use that impact to build stronger partnerships with businesses, because they can bring funding, volunteers, equipment, professional expertise and access to wider networks. And they can help organisations reach more beneficiaries and have a greater influence on the issues that matter in communities. VCSEs are already delivering fantastic social value, but you don't often describe it using that language. So being able to articulate and evidence the difference that you make, VCSEs can unlock new opportunities to collaborate with businesses and become valued delivery partners. Next slide, please. So for those of you that are old enough to know the reference, here comes the science bit. Okay, so social value, why has it become such a major focus over the last few years? Well, we've already said really that it makes great business sense. But here's the science bit. And one of the big reasons is that the introduction of the government's social value model. So this was originally introduced in 2020 in the midst of COVID, although there had already been a Social Value Act, or the Public Services Social Value Act, since 2012. The social value model set out a clear expectation that public spending should deliver more than just goods and services and should help create wider benefits for the society, whether that's creating jobs, improving the environment, supporting local communities or tackling inequality. More recently, the government introduced Procurement Policy Note 002, or PPN 002, which builds on that approach. And the key message is really social value isn't an optional extra anymore. It's now embedded within public sector procurement, and with such large central government contracts, as we've already said, that goes down and down through supply chains and into every organisation. So rather than asking, can you deliver the contract, buyers are asking, how will you leave a positive legacy for the communities we serve? So suppliers need to plan, deliver and evidence their social value as part of doing their business. So organisations that can clearly evidence their social value are finding themselves in a much stronger position to build partnerships, win work and demonstrate the difference that they make. And as you can see on the slides there, this is all really demonstrating how social value is at the heart of public sector procurement as well. The current social value model that's been updated last year currently includes 5 missions. I haven't included them on the slides, but I'll go through very quickly what they are. So you can see the kind of things that the government's valuing at the moment. They're all focused on creating stronger communities and supporting economic opportunity. You've got mission 1, which is around kickstarting economic growth, and that's looking at things like fair work, skills that you need for growth, and resilient and innovative and flexible supply chains. Mission 2 is all around making Britain a clean energy superpower. So that's your sustainable procurement practices and your support for the environment. Mission 3 is take back our streets. I'm always a bit unsure of the wording on that, but essentially it's around supporting the reduction in crime. Mission 4, breaking down barriers to opportunity. This is a really important one, and this is around employment and training for those who face barriers to employment, everything that we try and do every day at AKG, and creating a pipeline opportunities for the contract workforce and reducing barriers to entry for underrepresented groups. Mission 5, the final one, is around building an NHS fit for the future. And so the outcome that they're looking for there is how we can increase productivity through physical and mental well-being in the supply chain and in communities. So that's the science bit over with. So next slide, please. So having heard all of that, you're probably already delivering social value. Um, you know, organizations of all sizes are already creating positive impact. And even if you pick one of these examples that are here, whether you're paying the living wage, whether you have an equality policy, whether you have an inclusive recruitment policy, whether you give your staff a volunteering day, these are all ways that you're generating social value without probably even realizing. And like I've said, social values, some of the best outcomes happen in collaborations when businesses collaborate with VCSEs, school, colleges, local authorities, community groups. So it's really essential that you look at your networks in your local community and you don't impose something on the community, but you can all work together to essentially make it better. And that's what we all want to do, work in a better, happier and healthier community. So hopefully my sound has stayed there all the time. Apologies if you've heard me a little bit out in and out. I hope you're still staying here with me. So now we've looked at what social value is, why it's important and set the scene. I'm going to hand over to Natasha from Stepnell, and she's going to talk you through some practical hints and tips about creating a high value and low cost social value. Over to you, Tash.
Thanks, Jo. Morning, everybody. Lovely to see all of you. I think we've got quite a few people on the webinar already, which is fantastic. A little bit about me and a little bit about Stepnell. So I'm the social value manager at Stepnell. I have worked in some form of social value for probably about 15, 20 years. So whether I was working as a homeless support worker, whether I was working in a training background, getting people with barriers back into work, all of that was happening, but I didn't realise it was social value until a few years ago when I left the training world and I came into the world of construction, which I never thought I would ever go into. And social value has given me a way to actually figure out how we can support our local communities. Now, one thing that you do see out there is, well, social value is all about giving money, fundraising, donating, buying a bench, but actually social value is not that at all. It's about what we can do for VCSEs, charities, the local community, and time and resources are probably the most important thing you can do. Next slide, please. So as Jo said there, social value is not about massive social responsibility budgets. It's not about big corporations. It's about the positive impact that you leave on that community. Having a mock interview with someone, and the nice thing is I've worked in partnership with AKG for a couple of years now, where I've gone in and given mock interviews. And I've always said, as long as I'm giving mock interviews, it doesn't matter what sector that person wants to go into. And we've had a couple of opportunities where I've given a mock interview, I've given them some careers advice and guidance, and they've gone into a different sector. Well, for me, that's somebody having the confidence to go into work. That is what social value is all about. It's about having that positive legacy leaving wherever you are working. So whatever you can do, whatever small it is, even if you're impacting that one person, that is making a huge difference. So never think, I can't give £1,000 or I can't give £500. Your time is so much more valuable. So buying, as Jo says, a local coffee from an independent coffee shop. If you're having a buffet come into the office, see if you can have a VCSE or a local charity or a local area to provide that buffet rather than a national company. Next slide, please. So there's lots of different ways that you can really give back without spending money. And as I say, time and resources are huge. So mock interviews, working with people who are unemployed to get back into work are hugely important. Going through an interview, as most of us have done, are nerve-wracking at the best of time. But if you have barriers to actually get into the workplace and you may have never actually experienced an interview itself, you don't know what you're going for. And sometimes when you're working with maybe an employment coach, they get too comfortable and don't really understand what it's like to talk to a stranger. And the nice thing is that I can go in, I can give a mock interview, but then I can actually give proper feedback. And I will give feedback to the candidates, and I'll also give feedback to the AKG coach as well, so they can put a plan in place to help and support that person. And you're building up confidence as well. The more mock interviews somebody can have, the more confidence they will think, well, actually, I know what I'm doing. And they may not have heard of something like the STAR technique or understand that competency-based questions, you have to give a longer answer than a yes or no. If you're interested in going into schools, there's a great organisation called Careers and Enterprise Company, and they work with pretty much every school in the country. And if you want to get access to schools, you maybe want to go do a careers fair, you may want to go to some mock interviews, you may actually want to go and talk to them about your careers. We were having a conversation the other day. I can't believe how many different careers there are in construction, and I never knew about half of them. And I always have a joke that actually, you tell me a skill, I can find you a job in construction. So going in and talking to school children about, have you ever thought about being a planner, or have you ever thought about working as a site manager, and not just on the tools, and giving those career aspirations? The Careers and Enterprise Company, it's free to join. They give you lots of information, and they will tell you what's happening in the local area, and you can go and work with schools. One advice I will give if you're starting on your social value journey is don't try and do everything. As Joe said earlier, maybe pick one thing that your organisation wants to do and do it well. So it might be you have a passion of filling that skills gap and you want to work with schools, and maybe you want to provide work experience. Focus on that. Or if you want to work maybe with veterans or care experienced young people, have a think about where your passion lies and follow that route. Don't try and do everything at once, because you'll get very confused, and we don't have the time and resources to do that. Next slide, please. So if you are a VCSE or a charity and you're thinking, wow, Stepnell looks amazing, how on earth do we get in charge of working with these kind of companies? How do we break down those barriers? Well, as Joe said, all of these employers, like myself, we have social value commitments. So wherever we are working, we will have a commitment to work within normally a radius of 30 miles and engage with the local community with that. Generally, all of our sites, and this will be the same for the majority of different contractors, will have a volunteering day that we would like to do. So there's different ways you can start looking. LinkedIn is a fantastic way to start looking. All you need to go on there is maybe find social value managers, and they will come with lots of different people and start connecting. Start sending those messages out, and you will never know what kind of response you'll get. But if you don't ask, I always say to the question to everybody who I work with, ask the question. I can always say no. Don't be afraid to ask. And there's lots of different platforms out there. So there is a platform called Match My Project. Now, it's not in every local authority, but it is getting bigger. And it's like a dating app for charities and companies to come together. So you will put on your requests, say that you would like some volunteering to come and help within our community garden. You need 2 volunteers over 10 hours, and this is what you need. And then businesses will go on there and say, actually, I'm working in that local area. We can offer you this, and it will be matched, and it will be free for you to do that. I do that quite a lot. So if I'm working in a new area and I need to find a new charity to work with, I will go on that kind of platform, and then I will have a look to see what's available. Start small. Don't necessarily ask for the world, and then you build up that relationship with that charity or company that you're working with. So, for example, I've started doing a lot of work in Oxford. I reached out to a small charity in Oxford. We did a volunteering, but actually that person moved over and was working with the Leeds College, and we've set up a year-long partnership now, and that was just through a conversation. Tim, I've just seen your message. Nuneaton Signs is fantastic. I have been pushing and pushing for all of our sites to use Nuneaton Signs. They're a fantastic VCSE, and I've been to their offices as well, and they do some fantastic work. So it's all about just building those relationships, and you never know where it comes from. Collaboration is huge, and you will find in the world of social value that there's no barriers to collaboration. So it might be that I can't help you this time, but I know another social value manager who might be able to help you and point you in the right direction. So it's all about those talking and collaboration. Next slide, please. So what could you do now? What I would suggest to do if you're new on your world of social value and you want to think about where to move forward, pick one thing that you're really, really passionate about and have a think about how you're going to do it this quarter. So set yourself a goal. Is it that you would like to work with schools? get onto the Careers and Enterprise website, have a look at your Careers and advisor, and then try and get onto the website. There's actually a LinkedIn profile, I think, for every district for Careers and Enterprise. That's where I figure out where the schools are happening, and then you can start engaging with them. It might be that you want to try and reach out to a business. Now, if you're working in our area and you want to meet up with me, that is no problem whatsoever. I'm on LinkedIn and I can talk to all of you, no problem. So just take it slowly. Rome wasn't built in a day, but every little thing matters. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tash, for that. And thank you, Tim, for popping your comment in then as well. So now we're going to move over to my colleague Donna. Donna is our National Employer Services Manager, and Donna is going to have a chat around social recruitment. So over to you, Donna.
Hello, thank you. Okay, so right, so here's my slide. So thank you. Thanks for joining, everybody. So I'm going to be talking about inclusive recruitment. So it's a practical guide for SMEs. So how inclusive hiring can help you attract great talent and deliver social value. So, okay, so next slide, please. So we're going to cover what inclusive recruitment is, what does it matter, why does it matter for SMEs, who could you be missing, simple ways to make recruitment more inclusive, benefits to your business, how AKG can support your business, give you a real sort of example, and how to get started. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, hang on a minute, I've lost my screen. Okay, so what is inclusive recruitment? So inclusive recruitment is about ensuring that everyone has an equal opportunity and to apply for and succeed in your recruitment process. So it means removing unnecessary barriers so that recruitment focuses on skills, potential and attitude rather than circumstances or background. So we talked a lot to employers regarding those and sort of look at sort of more sort of transferable skills and things like that. So inclusive recruitment opens doors to talent, ideas and innovation that drives your business forward. So it can include fair and accessible recruitment, so making your process easy to access and free from bias. So welcoming candidates from all backgrounds, so valuing diversity and creating a respectful, inclusive experience. Focusing on ability and potential. So what I mean is about that sort of the aptitude towards work and sort of those transferable skills. Creating equal opportunities, ensuring everyone has a fair chance to apply, progress and succeed. Supporting diversity within your workforce, so building stronger and more inclusive teams where everyone belongs. And inclusive recruitment leads to higher engagement and retention and performance. Next slide, please. So why does it matter for SMEs? So inclusive recruitment isn't just the right thing to do, it's good for your business. So we talk about sort of local jobs for local people and sort of really sort of adding that value. So why SMEs face common recruitment challenges? There can be skills shortages, hard to fill vacancies. You can have high recruitment costs. So when you're actually using sort of advertising campaigns and sort of recruitment websites and things like that, you can have staff turnover and competition for talent. So being that real competitive market. So inclusive recruitment can help businesses by reaching more candidates. If you work with companies like AKG, we have a ready access to a pool of candidates that are kind of sort of can be missed quite often. We can fill vacancies faster. So we have dedicated employer services consultants that actually work and match those opportunities. We can improve retention by giving that support and that in-work support when they've actually gone into work. Building stronger teams and enhancing their reputation with customers and clients. Okay, next slide, please. So who could you be missing? So many capable people face barriers to employment despite having valuable skills. So potential talent includes sort of people changing their careers. So when they've actually been in a sector for a very long time, it's no longer suited to their current needs. So they're looking to move into a new sector. They can often be overlooked because they haven't got experience in that field. Parents returning to work, they can be at a huge disadvantage, but they've got lots of skills to add to a workplace. Older workers, they can face a lot of barriers. Young people starting out their careers, they face the issue of sort of having that sort of lack of experience and getting that foot in the door. People with disabilities or long-term health conditions, veterans, care leavers, individuals recovering from illness, and people who have experienced long-term unemployment. Lots of these participants and candidates can actually face these sort of barriers. Okay, next slide, please. You're right, missing refugees. Sorry, you're great. You're right to sort of pick that one out. Simple ways to make recruitment more inclusive. So using jargon-free job adverts. So sort of really getting down to the nitty-gritty. So what is essential within that job role? Okay. Focus on essential requirements only. So ask what's truly needed for that role. So customer service skills, those sort of real sort of skills that is really essential. Offer flexible working where possible. So the normal standard 9 to 5 role isn't accessible for everybody. So there needs to be an element of flexibility at times. Making applications simple. We've all been there where we've seen sort of an application and it goes on and on, and it can generally put people off at times. Simpler the better for people to actually sort of really get sort of go through those applications. Provide interview adjustments if required. Consider those transferable skills. So great potential can come from different experiences. Train interviews to reduce unconscious bias. Awareness leads to fairer decisions for all. And be open to different backgrounds and experiences. Diverse teams are stronger, more creative and more successful. Okay, next slide, please. So the business benefits of inclusive recruitment. So you can have access to a wider talent pool. You can look at skills-based hiring, have access to a diverse workforce, offer fair recruitment, better job matching and community engagement. So the benefit to the business is more applicants, better quality candidates, fresh ideas and innovation, improved employer reputation, higher staff retention, and demonstrates true social value. Okay, next slide, please. So how can AKG support your business? So AKG provides a free recruitment support, including dedicated employer services consultants. So they can be a single point of contact, so you're not being bombarded. They can get a true understanding of your needs and provide tailored recruitment support. They can do vacancy promotions. They can promote your vacancy for you for free within our offices and sort of do our delivery partners to promote and sort of your vacancies to reach across those channels. Could do candidate sourcing, so actively search and match those suitable candidates to your vacancies and screen those, pre-screen them to pre-screen your candidates to save you time and ensure quality. Interview coordination, so we can arrange interviews at a time that works for you and your candidates. At times, we've actually even offered venues, so if you're short on space, especially for smaller companies. Recruitment events, so we can host job fairs, hiring events and networking opportunities to connect you with local talent. Ongoing in-work support, so we provide ongoing in-work support once they've actually been placed into work to actually identify any potential sort of needs while they're in the workplace. Advice on inclusive recruitment practices, so we share practical guidance to help you attract, hire and retain a diverse and inclusive workforce. Okay, next slide, please. So a real example I've not mentioned the company here, but the company it's a large hospitality organisation that we actually work with. They've actually oversee 14 different brands. So we've actually been working very closely with them for the last couple of years and the last 12 months in particular. So there's a quote from them. So AKG really took the time to understand our needs, because we've actually taken that time to actually identify what they truly need. We've actually managed a skills match on them. Their support helped us to find great people we wouldn't have reached otherwise. The impact has been fantastic. So the good news story, one of our successful candidates joined us through this partnership. With determination and support, they're now a team leader. So they actually started off as a kitchen team member in one of their brands. Started off sort of with a few hours actually, because it was actually supporting them. So to build their confidence, they actually had a couple of shifts a week. They then sort of progressed onto full time, and then after a year, through building their confidence and actually gaining experience, they're now actually a team leader, and actually supporting new members of staff when they actually join as well. So it's a real sort of true sort of good news story. Okay, so next slide, please. So getting started, you don't need to overhaul your recruitment process. Start with 3 simple steps. Review your job adverts. Make sure your adverts are clear, inclusive and easy to understand. Consider whether every requirement is essential. So focus on what's truly needed for that role. So sometimes you just need to strip it back a little bit. Partner with organisations like AKG, not just us, there are others, to access a wider range of candidates. We connect you with great people from diverse backgrounds. Small changes can have a significant impact. Next slide, please. So yeah, questions and next steps. So thank you for your time. If you'd like support with any of these, then please do not hesitate to sort of reach out, and then we can actually support you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. That was great. Just as a note on that, while you were talking, I was thinking I'm a product of an organisation that is able to embrace flexible recruitment as a mum of a primary school child. Well, for 2 more days anyway. But when I started at AKG, it was really important that I could go out and pick up my child from school. And that was something that AKG were more than happy to do. So if it weren't for flexible recruitment policies, then working here or working full time might not be an option to be able to undertake. So yeah, just thought I'd share. Thank you very much. So now we introduce Matt. Now Matt did have a few technical difficulties with his sound beforehand, so I'm really hoping that everything has been resolved. So Matt, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So welcome very much, Matt. Did you have your presentation slides to share, or are you just talking through?
I do have them here, and I'm just sharing them now. So
fantastic. I will hand straight over to you. So thank you very much.
It's fabulous. Okay, so yeah, hi everybody. So just whilst whilst PowerPoint is thinking about stuff, I'll just quickly introduce myself. So I'm Matt Haworth. I self-describe myself as a bit of a kind of social impact nerd, which probably gives you an idea about the sort of things that I've got up to in my career. And one thing that I've got especially interested in for some strange reason is how you measure and quantify social value, which is an important aspect of social value delivery, because actually, if you are going to kind of pick up some of these contracts or get involved in this kind of procurement pipeline, where you be able to, hopefully win more business or get more support for your VCSE, you're going to at some point be asked to put a figure on this stuff. And these figures can be pretty confusing to calculate. So I thought I'd just give you a quick run through of that subject, and also a little tool that I've ended up developing to help people with that. Okay, so hopefully you can see my slides now. Fabulous. So yeah, just very briefly about my background. About 20 years ago, I founded a social enterprise called Reason Digital. And as part of that, delivering kind of tech for good projects for charities, websites for charities and stuff like that, I got really curious about how we could better measure the social impact of some of the stuff we were doing. And that led to a journey where I founded another organization called Impact, which is a piece of software which helps organizations to kind of measure and manage their social value. I'm not talking to you about that today because I think you should buy it. I think everyone on this call, this software will be total overkill for what you're doing. But just to give you an idea about where some of my knowledge and understanding of this kind of came from. And really, when we created this software to try and help people to measure their social value, we hit upon this problem, which is how can you quantify social value? How can you put a figure on something as complicated as how much you're helping somebody by, for example, giving them those mock interviews? So there's various different ways to do it, and there's a way that's kind of quite agreed and accepted in the UK that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, as well as a tool to kind of give you a starting point for that. And I think the key thing to think about is, as well as just being a bit of an awkward thing that you have to do, actually measuring your social value can also be really helpful in helping you identify the most impactful things that you can choose to do and help you manage it. You know, look at, are we performing, are we delivering a good amount of social value on this program versus that program? So hopefully, although it can feel like a bit of a box ticking exercise sometimes, if you do it right, hopefully can really help you engage with social value and the management of it and the decisions that you're making around it. So one way to measure social value is to look at kind of menus of social value items that are out there. So there's these things called social value banks, and they are kind of like long lists of things that you can do, like mock interviews, for example, with a price attached. And you can, add up multiple ones of these things, a bit like making a burger on this menu, and kind of come up with the price of your intervention. We kind of explored these when we were developing Impact about 10 years ago. And one thing that we noticed, and one thing that's actually got worse actually, is that a lot of these social value banks are kind of proprietary. So like you have to pay money to kind of access the social value bank. And I find that really annoying because, there's people like you on this call, there's, SMEs, VCSEs, you're trying to do good stuff on the ground. You've been told you need to give a figure for this in order to kind of get the funding or support you need from a contractor, for example, and then you've got to pay a lot of money just to be able to tell somebody what you're doing in the right language. Didn't seem right to me. So what we ended up doing is Impact and a couple of other organizations that shared a similar sort of opinion about this set up something called Measure Up. And Measure Up is basically like a menu of those social value items, but it's totally free and it's completely open. And it's under a Creative Commons license, which means you can use it without restrictions. So just giving you that background, because the examples I'm going to draw on today are all taken from Measure Up. You can go on the Measure Up website, totally free, and cut and paste and nick anything you like from there in order to come up with your social valuation if you're asked to do it, okay? So yeah, a couple of principles that we've got: always open, always free. That's not going to change. And we're also trying to help people to kind of progress and get a little bit better at doing this measurement, because there's kind of quite sort of quick cuts and funny angles ways that you can do it. And there's like super intense ways that you can do it that take, huge investment, and there's everything in between. So Measure Up also helps you understand that kind of balance that we've got to weigh up. And I should say that the quick cuts and funny angles thing is a great place to start. So don't feel like, I often say to people with social value, you think you understand everything about how to measure social value. You definitely don't understand it. It's totally one of those things where the more you know, the more confused you get. So start simple, and I'm going to show you a really simple way to get started. So Measure Up, what's in it? So it's social valuations. So what do we mean by social valuation? Well, there's a few different definitions of social value from different people, like the British Standards Institute and the HM Treasury on your screen right now. And if you're quick at processing sentences, what you'll find is that they all have one common word in them, which is this word, well-being. Okay, so there's an increasing consensus that what's central to social value is some kind of measurement of well-being. And actually, that unless we're thinking about what the well-being impact of our initiatives on people are, at the very least, our measurement isn't going to be very complete or very kind of total, if you like. So in Measure Up, what you've got is a series of activities, things that you can do, and a series of outcomes that they might create. and they're all categorized under what's called the 10 dimensions of well-being, which is an Office of National Statistics kind of set of things, set of categories that they know have impacts on people's well-being. So you can have a look at this yeah, see how your personal well-being might be impacted by some of these things. Like if your relationship's not very good or where you live is not a very good place, you can see how that's going to impact your well-being. And I'll talk about this a bit more in a sec, but basically we value those things, those activities, based on kind of 4 categories of impact: economic impact, fiscal impact, well-being, and environment. Don't worry, you don't need to understand those words, but we'll come to explain it. So that's what Measure Up is: set of activities categorized in 10 different ways with a value attached to them. Easy as that. So yeah, the methodology I'm totally not going to go into today, but I just wanted to show you like a lot of logos and a lot of documents as some sort of way to convince you that we and a bunch of boffins have spent a lot of time looking at the method. And what we try to do with the method is actually just draw on things that already exist. We've not invented anything. We've just tried to take the best guidance that's available in the country and kind of shuffle it all together into something that is easy to use for you, so you don't have to read all of those documents, because believe me, there's a lot of long, boring documents in social value. So where the rubber meets the road is that you can go to our website, which is measure-up.org, and you can browse our menu, if you like, of the different activities that we have values for. So you can see there's some education and skills one here. We don't actually have one for mock interviews, and being on this webinar has made me think that we should definitely have one. But of course, you know, helping somebody into an apprenticeship, for example, is there, which a mock interview might help do. Here's some examples of health, like if you're improving someone's mental health or physical health, or getting somebody exercising a bit more, or perhaps something about, you know, the area where we live and the kind of things that we're engaged in. So it might be about digital skills and inclusion for people, or reducing homelessness. So let's try improve digital skills and inclusion and have a look at what that looks like. You can see here that for every person that you help to get digitally included, that's worth about £700 worth of social value, okay? £700 worth of social value. And what we mean by pounds worth of social value is not actually pounds and pence. You're not making 700 new pounds that you can kind of put in the bank, obviously. But what we're saying is that that intervention has paid off with the equivalent value of about £700 worth of otherwise activity or money that would have had to been spent or generated to have a similar kind of impact. You can also see here that Measure Up helps you to understand if you want to drill deeper and to kind of get a more specific value, then you can look at these different categories like bronze, silver, and gold, and it will give you a little bit more detail. But actually, just sticking with that headline value, if you've done a pretty decent digital inclusion kind of, you know, workshop, and you've got people online, multiply the number of people that you've done that with by 700, and you've got a pretty good estimate of what the social value of that is if you're asked to report that, okay? And if somebody wants more detail or wants more accuracy, then Measure Up provides you with a pathway to do that. We also categorize all these values by the things that you just heard about, like the recent missions that we just talked about. So you can browse Measure Up by the missions and have a look and see what we've kind of got on each mission, which is sometimes helpful. So Measure Up has the number, and it also has a series of kind of levels of practice. As I said, if you're just starting out with this, just stick to bronze, which is like one big headline number. But if you want to go deeper, you might want to, for example, survey stakeholders and ask them, what was the impact of this on your life specifically? And Measure Up gives you the set of questions that you would need to ask them to do that and get a much more accurate value that's specific to your intervention, okay? The last thing to kind of consider when you're doing one of these values is just to think about pie, which is something that I daydream about a lot. And pie in this context means sort of how much of the social value pie are you responsible for? So take digital inclusion, for example. If you were to get somebody on the internet, is it just you that's contributed to that? Or actually, have there been other agencies or other organisations? Did they manage to get a free laptop off a local charity? In which case, we probably need to share some of that £700 valuation with some of those other people that have helped out. And this is an important part of the process so that we don't overclaim or double count the social value that we're making. A lot of, you know, very experienced social value practitioners just make a wild guess for this, by the way. So don't worry if it's, you know, you don't know that it's 37.29% of the pie. It might just be like, well, they gave them the laptop and we gave them the training, so let's split it 50-50. And that's a completely acceptable level of practice, okay? To get our little impact slice of the pie. So these slides are going to be shared. I mainly put this in the deck just so you've got a copy of it, but you see me walk through how to do this for one of those simple values like digital inclusion. I thought I'd be better spending the few minutes I've got left to talk to you just to explain what these numbers actually are, because it's really confusing actually if you don't know what they are and you're working with them. So the astute amongst you will have noticed that the pound sign in front of that 700 was actually a little pound sign that we redesigned and came up with, and we put a cute little smiley face on it. And the reason for that is not just because it was a cute thing to do, but it's because this is like not real money. It's kind of social value Disney dollars, if you like. And that smile represents that a decent chunk of the value that we're talking about here is in someone's well-being. So how do we come up with this £700 figure? If you knew that, it would help you to understand how this stuff works. Well, this £700 figure is comprised of 3 different forms of value, 3 different numbers. The economic benefit. So if somebody's accessing the internet, they might be able to get a job easier. They might be able to save some money on their utility bills by going to a website like Money Supermarket and comparing the deal that they're getting, things like that. So there's a financial value to that individual being created of you training them on how to use the internet. Maybe they're saving 30 quid a month on their bills. Fantastic. Fiscal is the next category. A lot of people think fiscal means money, but it actually means government money. So actually, have we saved the government any money? You know, is there a chance that by getting someone online, we might be able to reduce their dependency on, say, universal credits or improve their health so that they don't have to go to the NHS as much, things like that? That would provide a saving for government. So we would add that to our number. And lastly, the most ethereal one, we've got well-being. So it's easy to understand how we could put a pounds and pence figure on economic and fiscal. How can we put a pound and pence on how happy someone feels or how well someone feels? Well, it's really interesting. The way that you would do that, say for smoking cessation, for example, is that you would ask somebody before you did the intervention, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with your life, all things considered? Enormous question. You know, that would fill me with a kind of weird existential kind of dread if someone was just to ask me that out of the blue. But people, you know, social value economics asks lots of people these questions. And then after the intervention, you ask them the same question. And you would see if you'd kind of move them up on this scale, right? And if they went from, say, a 5 to a 6, so 1 position up on the scale, that is worth around about £13,000, okay? And the reason for that is, and this is quite crazy, but this is the way it works, is that in order to get someone 1 point up that scale just through giving them money, like a pay rise, you would have to give the average person a £13,000 pay rise to make them 1 point more, have a greater well-being of 1 point on that scale. So we say that's the equivalence of it. Now, if you didn't follow any of that, don't worry. Like, you don't need to understand any of that in order to use measure up or to measure stuff. But I just like to tell people how it's calculated, because sometimes when you're working with these abstract numbers, it can be really confusing if you don't know what the hell it is you're reporting and how it's come up with. So that is the way that social value boffins come up with these values. Just to briefly mention, there is also a separate figure for environmental impacts. So if you are doing something that might save kind of carbon emissions or carbon equivalent emissions, you can look up the latest value of that online. So that's pretty much all I've got time to talk to you about. But where to next? We've got more values coming to measure up, especially environmental values, traineeships, some more economic values. We've got a little spreadsheet estimator that's kind of coming online soon. And also, if you want to help us to build this free resource measure up, you can actually sponsor values. So for like a few £1,000s, if you were doing something really interesting and you wanted us to come up with a value for it and release it on measure up, including with your company or charity logo on it, you can talk to us about that. And we do that at cost price working with you because it helps benefit the framework. And if you need any additional help, all the organizations that helped create Measure Up are here and kind of interested to talk to you. Those will be on the slides that get distributed. So I will finish up there. And there is a disclaimer with our licensing terms, which is a very exciting note to end on. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of how you can quantify your social value and apply this strange pound and pence figure on it, and shows you a free tool that you can use tomorrow, if you like, in order to start to attach those values. Yeah, obviously, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll get around to answering some of them.
Thank you so much, Matt. There is something in the chat that I think is for you. This is from Tim, who I can tell by the question seems to be very familiar with the TOMS model, the themes, outcomes and measures, because Tim's put there doesn't seem to be anything about employment of marginalised groups or spending with VCSEs. So can that be found in Measure Up?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, as a proxy for spending with VCSEs, you could just do what they do, which is just apply a kind of £1 spend for, for VCSEs is basically the social value that you're creating. I think that undersells a lot of the value that's happening. So actually, it's better to kind of look down the chain at what the VCSE is being enabled to do with that money, and then actually attach the value to that, like employment or improve mental health. In terms of employment of marginalised groups, we do have that, but we don't use that kind of label. That is in the silver category of our employment value, because what we say is that employment is one thing, and actually you can come up with a more accurate picture of what that employment's worth if you know something about that person, like their age or whether they have a protected characteristic. So you'll find that stuff under employment, but we're always working to kind of improve and add stuff to that as well. Great question. Thank you, Tim.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions for you, Matt. So thank you very much for coming and sharing. If this webinar has whet your appetite for social value, Impact do run along with the Social Value Network, I think it is, Neil, who might be on the call, do run a series of webinars, and they're always really interesting. So we'll share the link for you to go on and have a look, and you can come join the rest of us social value geeks and find out a bit more about it. Betty, you've put a question into the Q&A, which I think relates back to when Donna was presenting. As a new organisation helping refugees with employment support, how do I find inclusive businesses? Really good question. And, wouldn't it be wonderful if every business in the world was inclusive? And that is what we try and do when we work with employers. And as Donna was going through the inclusive recruitment process, and try and make organisations more aware of these groups of people who have talent. Like Natasha said, really, I think it's just ringing and asking the question and, asking about their recruitment processes. Or you could come to somebody like AKG and speak to us, and we will absolutely point you in the right direction. We don't gatekeep these things. We're certainly happy to offer new contacts and, introduce people where we can and where we can support communities. So, feel free to just drop me a buzz and drop me an email. You can tell I'm ready for another cup of coffee, can't you? And I'll introduce you to Donna and the Employer Services team.
I think for sometimes, Jo, just as from a business perspective, it's good to have almost like an awareness session. And sometimes when businesses partner with a company like AKG, all the support is there in the background, so you can actually have that support. That there may be barriers that someone is facing, and you can put that support in place. So businesses do like to have that additional hand-holding, really, to try and get people into the business, because it might be something completely new. Sometimes there is a stigma of working with people with barriers, so it's also having an awareness within the companies they're working with. What you'll find now is more and more companies are having more inclusive practices, and that's where the social value model is really pushing it. So have those conversations, try and find partner organisations that will support businesses as well.
Brilliant. I hope that answers for you, Betty. Yes, good advice, Tash. Thank you very much. Okay, I can see a red dot above the chat. So, oh goodness. So there's a conversation with regards to the proxy values for social value. So feel free to enter the chat and contribute to that. I'm not going to get into that because I'll be here all day and we only have 4 minutes left. But thank you very much. If there's no more questions, we'll finish the webinar there. A really, really big thank you to all of the guest speakers today for coming and joining us. Matt has just put the Measure Up website in the chat as well. But as I've said, all the slides from today will be sent out to everybody that's registered for the webinar. So if you've had a colleague that registered and they couldn't attend, they will still receive the slides as well, and they should also be able to receive the recording also. If you want to talk social value with us anymore, feel free to drop me a line, joanne.van@akguk.co.uk. Find me on LinkedIn, and for those of you that do already know me, you'll know that I'm always up for a chat and willing to talk about these things. So thank you once again for joining. I think we're nearly at lunchtime, and so enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully you'll join us on our next series of Insights webinars. Thank you, everyone.